Forged in the crucible of struggle against apartheid, the Tripartite Alliance, a potent alliance of the African National Congress, the South African Communist Party, and the Congress of South African Trade Unions, stands as a potent symbol of South Africa's journey towards democracy. Yet, with apartheid a fading memory, questions swirl about the alliance's relevance in the post-apartheid era, and its potential role in hindering, rather than aiding, the nation's development. Born in the 1980s as a united front against white minority rule, the alliance played a pivotal role in dismantling apartheid. The ANC, with its broad-based appeal, provided the political leadership. The SACP, though not contesting elections, offered ideological guidance and underground support. And COSATU, representing the muscle of the working class, mobilized workers through strikes and protests. This potent combination, fueled by a shared vision of a just and equal society, helped topple the apartheid regime, ushering in a new dawn for South Africa. However, the transition to democracy brought new challenges and complexities. The alliance, once a force for unity, now faces internal ideological differences and questions about its continued relevance. While some argue that its shared commitment to social justice and economic transformation remains crucial in addressing lingering inequalities, others point to its diminished relevance in a more diverse and dynamic political landscape. Critics argue that the alliance, clinging to its past, hinders progress. They point to instances where its influence on the ANC's economic policies, such as nationalization or labor laws, has allegedly hampered growth and investment. Concerns about state capture and corruption, where alliance members have been implicated in colluding with private interests, further fuel the perception of the alliance as a roadblock to development. Additionally, fears of entrenched bureaucracy and resistance to necessary reforms, due to vested interests within the alliance, create an atmosphere of stagnation. Furthermore, the alliance faces accusations of lacking accountability. Its opaque decision-making processes and limited public scrutiny raise concerns about potential conflicts of interest between party interests and the national good. This lack of transparency fuels public distrust and weakens the legitimacy of the alliance's actions. Proponents of the alliance highlight its enduring purpose. South Africa grapples with persistent poverty, inequality, and unemployment, issues deeply intertwined with the legacy of apartheid. The alliance, they argue, retains a crucial role in mobilizing collective action and advocating for policies that address these inequalities. Statistics speak volumes. In 2021, 55.5% of South Africans lived below the upper-bound poverty line, and the unemployment rate hovered around 35%. The alliance's potential to galvanize support for measures like land redistribution, a living wage, and expanded social security holds immense significance. Furthermore, the alliance's influence on the ANC's policies and agenda remains undeniable. Its members hold key positions within the government and actively participate in policy discussions. For instance, COSATU's recent success in securing a higher minimum wage for public servants exemplifies its continued ability to shape policies that directly impact the lives of millions. However, critics point to a changing landscape that challenges the alliance's relevance. South Africa's political terrain has diversified, with new voices and parties emerging. The economic freedom fighters, for instance, have carved a niche by advocating for more radical economic reforms, attracting support particularly among younger generations. This diversification weakens the alliance's hold on the political narrative, and raises questions about its ability to represent the full spectrum of South African society. Moreover, internal ideological differences within the alliance pose a challenge. The ANC's increasingly pragmatic approach clashes with the SACP's commitment to socialist principles. COSATU, meanwhile, struggles to balance its worker-centric interests with broader national considerations. These divisions often lead to public spats and hamper the alliance's ability to present a unified front on critical issues. The recent debate on nationalizing the South African Reserve Bank, where the ANC and SACP favored the move while COSATU expressed reservations, exemplifies this internal friction. Furthermore, concerns linger about the potential for the alliance to perpetuate a narrow power structure. With its deep-rooted ties to the ANC and limited internal democracy, some argue it excludes other voices and hinders broader inclusivity in the political process. This criticism gains traction as South Africa grapples with issues like corruption and state capture, where allegations of collusion between the alliance and private interests have tarnished its image. The alliance's fingerprints are evident across various critical policies. In 2018, COSATU pressure played a key role in influencing the ANC's decision to establish a national health insurance scheme, despite concerns about its feasibility. Similarly, the SACP's influence can be seen in the 2017 expropriation without compensation debate, which aligns with their socialist ideals but faces intense public and economic scrutiny. However, the alliance's influence isn't always harmonious. In 2020, COSATU fiercely opposed the proposed national minimum wage of 2,057 rand, arguing it fell short of addressing workers' needs. This highlights the ongoing internal dynamic within the alliance, where competing interests can shape policy outcomes. Beyond policy influence, the alliance's power lies in its ability to mobilize large segments of the population. In 2017, COSATU led nationwide protests against rising university fees, forcing the government to concede to a partial freeze. Similarly, the 2019 Save Public Education campaign, spearheaded by the SACP and aligned unions, highlighted the challenges in the education system, pressuring the government for reforms. These social mobilizations demonstrate the alliance's capacity to amplify public concerns and influence governance, though their effectiveness sometimes varies depending on internal cohesion and public support. Though often presented as a monolithic entity, the alliance is far from unified. Ideological differences between the ANC, SACP, and COSATU sometimes translate into healthy internal debates. For example, while the SACP advocates for nationalizing key industries, COSATU often prioritizes protecting jobs and advocating for fairer labor practices. These contrasting viewpoints provide internal checks and balances, prompting the ANC to consider diverse perspectives before formulating policies. However, critics argue that these internal differences can also lead to policy incoherence and hinder decisive action. Critics point to the alliance's influence on economic policies as a major culprit for sluggish growth and hindered investment. The implementation of the National Development Plan, seen by some as a departure from the alliance's traditional leftist leanings, has been met with mixed reactions. While lauded for addressing inequality, its perceived slow pace and bureaucratic hurdles raise concerns about its effectiveness. Opponents point to the influence of labor unions, particularly COSATU, in advocating for policies like high minimum wages, seen as deterring business expansion and job creation. This debate is further fueled by data. South Africa's GDP growth has stagnated in recent years, with unemployment reaching staggering highs of 35%. While complex factors contribute to this economic malaise, the alliance's role in shaping policy narratives cannot be ignored. The spectre of state capture, where private interests unduly influence policy and decision-making, looms large over the alliance. The Zondo Commission, currently investigating allegations of widespread corruption during former President Jacob Zuma's era, has implicated individuals linked to the ANC and SACP. While not directly accusing the alliance itself, these revelations raise concerns about potential collusion and its impact on development. The siphoning of public funds for private gain undermines essential projects, cripples infrastructure development, and ultimately hinders economic progress. The alliance needs to address these allegations transparently and demonstrate its commitment to ethical governance if it is to regain public trust in its role as a champion of development. Concerns swirl around the potential for the alliance to act as a roadblock to necessary reforms due to vested interests within its ranks. Bureaucratic hurdles and internal disagreements are seen as delaying critical changes, particularly in state-owned enterprises. The case of Eskom, the national power utility plagued by inefficiencies and mismanagement, exemplifies this concern. While labor unions affiliated with COSATU play a crucial role in the energy sector, their resistance to restructuring and layoffs is seen by some as hindering much-needed reforms. This raises the question: is the alliance acting as a safeguard against exploitation, or is it perpetuating an inefficient system that stifles development? Navigating this complex terrain requires striking a balance between protecting workers' rights and ensuring state-owned enterprises operate efficiently to fuel economic growth. The opaque nature of decision-making within the alliance raises concerns about accountability. Critics argue that its internal dynamics lack transparency, making it difficult to trace responsibility for policy decisions and their impact. This lack of clarity fuels accusations of nepotism and cronyism, further eroding public trust. Additionally, limited mechanisms exist to hold the alliance accountable for its actions. While individual members may face consequences for wrongdoing, the alliance itself operates largely outside the purview of formal accountability structures. This opaqueness hinders open dialogue and public scrutiny, essential for ensuring responsible governance and promoting development aspirations. The alliance has championed large-scale infrastructure projects like the Medupi Power Station, aiming to address energy shortages. While lauded for boosting electricity generation, concerns about cost overruns and mismanagement emerged, with critics pointing to a lack of transparency and potential influence by vested interests within the alliance. Conversely, projects like the Gawu Train Rapid Rail System, praised for efficiency and urban development, showcase successful collaboration between the ANC and COSATU. Land reform, a crucial pillar of post-apartheid development, presents a complex case. The alliance supported the willing seller, willing buyer approach, criticized by many for its slow pace and minimal redress for historical injustices. While the ANC-led government implemented land restitution programs, internal disagreements within the alliance arose. SACP advocated for a more radical redistribution, clashing with ANC's cautious approach, highlighting the complexities of navigating competing interests. The proposed National Health Insurance Scheme, championed by the alliance, promised universal healthcare access. However, COSATU concerns about funding and potential job losses within the private sector led to internal friction. Public debates ensued, exposing differing visions within the alliance and sparking broader societal discussions about the role of public and private healthcare. Education, critical for development, also became a battleground. COSATU demanded increased funding for public education, aligning with ANC promises. However, concerns arose about mismanagement and inefficiencies within the education system. SACP further pushed for reforms to align education with labor market needs, sparking internal debates about priorities and resource allocation. These examples illustrate the intricate reality of the alliance's influence. Their actions often trigger diverse reactions, highlighting both potential benefits and drawbacks. Internal disagreements further muddy the water, showcasing the complex negotiations and competing interests within the partnership. It's crucial to look beyond broad pronouncements and delve into specific policies and their actual impact to understand the alliance's true role in South Africa's development journey. The tripartite alliance's future relevance rests on its ability to adapt and evolve. By embracing transparency, inclusivity, and responsible governance, it can continue to play a meaningful role in shaping South Africa's future. However, ignoring its shortcomings and failing to adapt to changing realities will only serve to further marginalize this once potent force. The choice lies not in discarding the alliance's legacy, but in leveraging its strengths while addressing its weaknesses to ensure its continued relevance in a post-apartheid South Africa, striving for a more just and equitable future. Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, share and subscribe.